Hello, and thank you for tuning in. You are most welcome to join us wherever you are. My name's Stuart Reed, and this is 0 Day Cyber. We explore different aspects of digital security on each show and examine what it could mean for you. Today's special guest in my virtual studios here is Chris White, Head of Cyber and Innovation at the Cyber Resilience Centre for the South East. Hi there, Chris, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Stuart. Thanks for inviting me along.
You're very welcome. Good to have you here. Now, before getting started, I would like to ask you our unrelated icebreaker question. And this one has been kindly submitted by Jonathan, so big shout out to you. And the question is this: if you could instantly learn any language, what would you choose?
I like that. Something that I've always wanted to do is actually learn the piano. Now, it is really relaxing. And in my role, I guess it gets me away from that screen time. So yeah, one thing that I want to do is definitely learn a piano.
Excellent. Good choice there. Now, you and I, Chris, we've worked together as part of the Cyber Resilience Centre for the South East. But for those of our audience members that are perhaps less familiar, can you give us a brief overview of what the aims of the centre are?
Yeah, absolutely, no problems. So the Cyber Resilience Centre for the South East is part of a national network of not-for-profit centres. It was established across the UK by policing, and it works between business and academia. And principally, we're helping businesses strengthen their resilience to online crime and cyber attacks. So we provide guidance and support from us, leading law enforcement and industry experts, helping take those simple steps to protect businesses from cyber criminals. We're going to be utilising student talent from all our local universities, and that's down in Portsmouth, Southampton, Surrey, New Bucks and Oxford. And we're using students to assist in providing low-cost services that basically help protect businesses and be safer online. I mean, examples there, I guess we could say awareness sessions for staff, because they are your first and last line of defence, to completing an assessment of your computer infrastructure or your computer systems. We hopefully don't identify any vulnerabilities, but where we do find issues, we will assist in fixing them before the cyber criminals, unfortunately, will exploit them. So that's what we're all about.
Excellent. And what are some of the common trends that you're seeing from a cybersecurity perspective, and how does that insight really benefit your members?
So I regularly read what's called the reported crime figures. So when unfortunately someone has a cyber incident and they do phone action fraud, I get to see those figures and what the causation is of those figures. And often I see featured, unfortunately, is social media compromises. That's where the bad guys will get into your social media accounts and then take them over. Network intrusions. So that's where your systems, someone from the outside has managed to penetrate it and get in. We've got DDoSing. I unfortunately see a bit of DDoSing still. And that's when you flood a computer with so much traffic, it just unfortunately stops working. I guess the same thing you could translate is if 10 people ask you a question at once, you probably managed to answer the first question, but the other 9, you'll be just like, ah. And then ransomware, when someone's got into your systems and then they will either prevent you from seeing your own data and ask you for some financial assistance in getting access to your money again. So yes, I see those frequently occur, and they happen because sometimes people just don't configure their computer systems correctly or safely. And where we step in is we assist in telling you how to implement some basic cybersecurity controls. And some of those controls will genuinely prevent the majority of cybercrime. I could cite a couple of examples actually on small business. So small business I know uses Instagram and Facebook to advertise. It's their lifeline. And I often see criminals taking over these accounts and holding them ransom until their business either pays up or they regain access through a legitimate channel, which sometimes takes some time. And during those periods, revenue generation is frozen, isn't it? And reputation can often be damaged. But how do you prevent that from happening? Well, using a strong passphrase and turning on something simple like two-factor authentication, which is free for Instagram and Facebook. And this can prevent this style of attack. It stops the outside attacker getting in.
Now, you mentioned small business there, Chris, and of course, according to some of the research, the number of breaches and attacks, and those that you've touched on there in terms of the trends that you're seeing, seem to be rising among small businesses. Now, why do you think that is?
Well, I have seen an increase in ransomware and data breaches, and this is partly due to several significant campaigns by some, I guess, the most prominent ransomware groups. But overall levels of cybercrime reporting has largely remained consistent throughout the previous year, with the exception of a small peak in November. Now, I reckon that's almost exclusively due to individuals reporting rather than businesses. And it was likely down to the increase in online activity prior to the Christmas period. And that's a lot of people obviously buy stuff before Christmas.
Mm.
So what happens after a data breach? Well, there sadly will be phishing email campaigns. Then people will be clicking on malicious links. And that's normally and often the most successful way when malicious software is placed onto a computer system. Software's in, and then that cycle, unfortunately, is repeated.
For small businesses in particular, do you think there's also been a trade-off between that business continuity and cybersecurity?
It's a very competing environment, and I know cybersecurity is up there, but there are a few other issues that I know small business are more concerned with at the moment, and above all, that's our safety. But I know there was a rush in setting up the home working environments, that's for sure. And I did see a few bad habits creeping in. Now, for example, the corporately issued machines. I know that some would end up being used by their children, for instance, to complete the online homework. And then the kids were visiting different websites. And then sadly, as a result of visiting those websites, those devices got compromised with ransomware and malicious software. And I can see all the reasons why that happened, because there was a shortage of IT infrastructure at home, and there probably wasn't enough laptops at home. And then kids all of a sudden found themselves being at home. So people were just utilizing what was available. Now, I know these things will happen, which is why we need to have the correct controls in place and to reduce and limit the damage of disruption of a cybersecurity incident that a small business might suffer. So for the example I've just given, if you used your computer for daily tasks, if it's a corporately issued machine or you're a small business, one of the simple things you can do is just make sure you don't have administrator privileges enabled. And what that means is that you do your day-to-day business, and if you accidentally do something, you click on the wrong thing, not having administrator privileges prevents you from accidentally changing or damaging the machine. So getting rid of those bad habits and just implementing some basic cybersecurity controls, although it sounds really basic, it actually does its job.
Now, many of our viewers tuning into this probably have small businesses of their own and can certainly relate to the examples that you've just given in terms of working from home, remote working, and the lack of IT infrastructure as such. Now, they probably also recognize they could do a lot more from a cybersecurity perspective. You've touched on a couple of those things there, but what would your top 5 tips be to get them on the road to good cyber hygiene?
I think I might go down to 3. I'll try anyway. So chop it up into bite-sized areas. So consider your people, your processes, and your technology. So when we look at the people, training for you and your staff so they know what to do. And then if it starts to go wrong, they know who and where to ask for help. It's really important because, again, I said earlier, your staff are your first line of defense and then your last line of defense. If you have a shop, a stranger or a visitor or a client or a customer, they will walk in, the first thing that happens is they're greeted. So literally, if a phishing email comes in, it needs to be greeted. Someone's got to manage it. And if you give staff training in our comfortable traditional world, you ought to do it in relation to how you want your staff to manage your inbox, your team inboxes. So do not forget your people. And then the processes, what is unique to your business? So set the expectations. Don't assume everybody knows how to use computers safely. And that sometimes, yes, things will go wrong, but it's safe for those things sometimes to go wrong. And you don't create that wrong environment. So people are too scared to even report anything because you need to know what's happening. And then lastly, it's the technology. Set those computers up safely. And if you don't know, just ask. And that's where we come in. So signing up, join us, whatever the correct expression is, at the Cyber Resilience Centre for the Southeast. I could plug us, the www.southeast cyber resilience centre, but it's secrc.co.uk. You can access free of charge membership, and we offer affordable help if you need it. But ultimately, you can get advice or guidance from us in relation to some basic security controls, fix the low-hanging fruit. More often than not, the stuff that we tell you what to do is out there. It's in a saturated market, isn't it? You could go onto any search engine and try to get cyber help, but you don't know what to trust. So come to us. trustworthy. I'm a police officer in that the advice I give is free. There's nothing which I would charge them for.
Excellent. Well, really good advice there as well, Chris. So thank you very much for that. Really informative discussion. And it's great to have you on the show. So thank you very much for joining us here at 0 Days Cyber. And so with that, we do close this episode of 0 Days Cyber. So thank you at home also for tuning in. If you like what you saw, please do join us again. And of course, tell your friends, family, and colleagues. Also, if you want to ask Chris any questions, give us feedback, or suggest an icebreaker question of your own for my next guest, find us at 0days_cyber or 0dayscyber.net. Thanks for being with us and see you again soon.